Today is November 4th, 2022. We're here at the log cabin with Dan from Pinecraft Log Homes. He's the contractor that's installing siding on both ends of the log cabin in Weskersville. And Dan will explain a few things about what he's doing and what he's finding with the log cabin.
So we got an old log cabin here with saddle notches, the V-shaped saddle notches, which is typical. There's sometimes half dovetail, but that's less common in old buildings. And we have the old mud. This is, it's actually mud. I haven't seen any horsehair, but there's mud, and then various levels of times where people tried to put more mud in, and they would often just use blocks of wood as backing because you don't want to pack it all the way full of mud. And a lot of the old log buildings were sided. It's a fairly new thing that we uncover them and leave them exposed. So I am preparing to re-side it, but the buildings often kind of wave in and out as far as plumb, and they're not even in plane, the old ones often. So that's not great for siding. So I'm furring it out and putting lath, and you can see up here I'm putting shims, so that way I'm not trying to get it plumb or even in plane. I'm just trying to smooth out the curve of the wall. This building's in pretty good shape. We have a little bit of bug damage, but that's probably, honestly, decades or longer old. This is a pretty common problem. Underneath the windows, the windows will start to leak at some point. People will leave them, and then it gets wet. And really, the best way to protect these buildings is to keep the moisture out, or if they're going to get wet, make sure they are able to dry. So in order to fix this is not structurally terrible, or because it's just similar to this. We got solid logs here, and above, but for nailing of the siding and also just for the window, and I'm going to carve out essentially like half the log for 6 or 8 feet, and then I'm going to put in new material just to kind of bridge this rotten spot, give it some support, and then have something positive to nail to. I'm not sure what else. Ready? So this side is pretty dang good. We got a little bit of this, a little bit of rot here, where if you were gonna have this exposed, perhaps you would fill it with epoxy or maybe replace that. But it's still, because this log is probably 7 inches thick, that's only 1 inch deep. I'm not terribly worried about that. And since we're gonna side it, the fact that it's a little ugly isn't a big deal. The notches are still, especially down low, very sound and good. And even this, which is a little bit rotten, is still, the bulk of it is actually very solid. Half of the building's already done. This was the timber part with brick infill. Again, these were in very good shape. The bottom corners had a little bit of rot, but structurally, I think still very good. And this wall was very flat and smooth. It was pretty good. Didn't take much shimming at all.
What type of material?
Oh, the material. This is hardy plank. It's a cement fiber board. Obviously, that's not. They didn't have that back then, but thinking about the maintenance, and because with wood you always have to keep it painted, and that was one of the reasons that we were having so much problems is because the wood was a little bit rotten and it wasn't properly nailed, or it didn't have nails often enough, and it just got wonky and crazy. So, but this it emulates traditional clapboard siding. So,
What's underneath the joints?
there at the seams there is just a piece of flashing 6 inches wide, and it comes down to I tried to make it just so you can't see it, and it comes up an inch, so that way if water tries to get there, it just kind of hits that flashing and runs right out.